Hello all and welcome to this tutorial on AWS command line interface in S3. In our tutorial today, we will see how we can leverage the AWS command line interface to interact with S3 to list existing buckets and objects in that bucket, create a bucket, add objects to our bucket, remove objects from our bucket, move objects from our S3 bucket to our local folder, and vice versa, and also sync our S3 bucket with our local folder and vice versa. And finally, we will go ahead and delete our bucket. Now, this particular tutorial assumes that your AWS command line interface is installed on your machine. So in case your AWS command line interface is not installed, please refer to this particular URL that I have mentioned over here. And this installation is basically for Microsoft Windows. It is pretty straightforward and simple. And in approximately about 25 to 30 minutes, you should have your command line interface installed on your machine. After you have installed your command line interface, please ensure that you have configured your user profile. So in case you do not know how to configure your AWS user profile after your CLI is installed, please refer to this video that I had created. It's available online. And I have also posted the YouTube URL link right there for your reference. So if you just go to my channel and look for or search for configure your user profile for AWS CLI, you should be able to get your hands on this particular video. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to switch to my AWS account. So this is my AWS account right here. Okay. And for this particular demo, what I have done is I have created two buckets. So as you see, I have this my CSS bucket for demo right here. And I have another bucket. This is S3 bucket for demo. So these two buckets have been created. Let us go ahead and review the contents of each of these buckets. So let's click on the CSS bucket. So as you see, this particular bucket has a bunch of CSS files in it. To be precise, we have about 7 CSS files right there. Okay. And then now let's go ahead and review the contents of the S3 bucket for demo. So in this bucket, we have a bunch of picture files. As you see, I have a bunch of JPEGs right here. And I also have a logs folder. So let me go ahead and click on logs folder. And as you see, I have 2 logs right here in the JSON format. Now we will leverage these 2 buckets and the objects in these buckets for some of our commands that we will execute today. Okay, so let me go back to my S3 and then switch to my notepad. Now this is my notepad right here. And as you see, I have enlisted a bunch of commands that we will execute in our session today. For each of the commands, I have actually mentioned the actual command, and then the actual command is right here. So this is the command that we will execute and the reference. So if you in case want to execute the same command, let's say on your bucket, just go ahead and replace this bucket name parameter that I'm highlighting right now with your bucket name. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that we will do is list all existing buckets. Remember, we have 2 existing buckets and we will use this particular command, AWS S3LS, to enlist all buckets that we have in this particular region. So let's go ahead and copy this command. And I'm going to copy this command and paste it over here on my command line interface. I've already logged in and right click. And as you see, it's AWS S3LS. So if you notice, we have LS over here, and this kind of is an inspiration coming from Linux or Unix. So in Linux or Unix, if you want to enlist all the files, you would use ls minus l. So here, since we are trying to enlist all our existing buckets, the command is on the similar lines. And not only this, but a bunch of other commands that we will execute in this session today, you will notice that they are on the same lines of Linux or Unix, at least some of the parameters or the commands that we will type in. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit enter. And this should endless both the buckets. So as you see, our CSS bucket and S3 bucket for demo, both of them are enlisted. So after we have enlisted our existing buckets, the next thing that we will do is we will enlist all the objects in our bucket. So the command for that is, as you see over here, is AWS S3 LS, and then finally the bucket name. So in case you want to execute this on your bucket, just replace this bucket name with your bucket name. So I'm going to copy this command now. Okay. And then let's go ahead and execute it. So this particular command is going to enlist all objects in our, this is S3 bucket for demo. So let's go ahead and hit enter. So if you remember, we have a bunch of picture files as you see right here, and we have a logs folder. But as you see, the contents of the logs folder, the objects in the logs folder were not enlisted. So in case we want to know what is present in a logs folder, we need to execute the very same command, but just append it with /logs/. And this should enlist both the log files that we had in our logs folder. Okay, so after we have enlisted our contents in a bucket, the next thing that we will do is we will go ahead and create a bucket. So the command to create the bucket is, as you see over here, is AWS S3 MB. MB essentially stands for make bucket, and then finally the bucket name. If you want to specify the region, you can. If you don't specify the region, it will take the default region for your AWS profile. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy. The bucket that we will create is going to be, this is a S3 bucket from CLI. So let's go ahead and copy this. I'm going to clear my screen here and then paste my command. So as you see, it's AWS S3, again, MB stands for make bucket, and then the bucket name. So this should create this bucket in our Amazon S3. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And as you see, we got a response back, make underscore bucket, which is essentially MB and the bucket name. So let's switch back to our console. And if we refresh this, we should be able to see a bucket created right here. So there is a bucket. A bucket was created successfully. Okay, so after we have created a bucket, the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to copy a single file to this particular bucket. So the command for that is AWS S3 CP. CP stands for copy, the local file name, and then the bucket name. So in this particular directory that I'm using on my command prompt, static website, let me switch to my Windows Explorer. There it is. So as you see, this particular bucket, this particular folder has a bunch of folders in it and has this landing page.cs file present here. And this file, this is the file that we will upload to our S3 bucket. So let me switch back to my notepad and copy the command. Okay. So our command has been copied. So let's go ahead and paste it right here. So I have landing page.cs in my static website folder, and I'm going to copy this file from my local folder to my S3 bucket. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And as you see, it gave us a message that this file has been uploaded successfully. So let's go ahead and review this. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh first and then click on our bucket. And as you see, our file has been uploaded and the storage class of our file is standard. So let's say if I wanted to upload my file, but I wanted to upload it in a different storage class. Let's not say standard. Standard is the default, but standard is expensive. I say, hey, this is not a very important file. I just want to upload it in a reduced redundancy storage class. So in case you want to, specify a specific storage class, all you need to do is go ahead and add this parameter towards the end. So let's go ahead and actually copy the same file again, but under the storage class reduced redundancy. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this command right here. Okay, so as you see, the command is the same. Everything is same, except this time I have specified my storage class as reduced redundancy. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And as you see, our file has been uploaded. So let's switch back to the console. So if you see, our landing page.cs was uploaded with under the storage class standard, but after I refresh this, the storage class should be changed to reduced redundancy. So let's go ahead and refresh this, and there it is. It has changed to reduced redundancy. So similarly, I mean, if you want one zone infrequent access or standard infrequent access, you can mention those storage classes as well. Okay, so the next thing, after we have uploaded our file, a single file, we will sync our local folder with S3. Okay, so let's scroll down a little. So this basically will sync everything that is present in our local folder with our bucket S3. Okay, so as you see, the command for that is AWS S3 sync local folder. The dot, actually this dot represents the local folder, that is the current folder, and our name of our bucket. So let's go ahead and copy this particular command. So I'm going to copy this command right here. And this, as I said, this dot is actually my local folder, the current local folder. In this case, it happens to be static website. So it is going to sync contents of my static website local folder with my S3 bucket. So let's go ahead and hit enter. So as you see, it is uploading all the contents or all the files in my local folder to my S3 bucket. So as you see, I have a bunch of folders over here, and each one of these folders also have a bunch of files in it, like Lambda over here, or HTML files are right here. I also have a bunch of CSS files in here. And all of these should now be in sync with our S3 bucket. So remember, earlier we had only one file, but the moment I refresh it, we should be able to see all the folders. So there these folders are, and the files in these folders. So let's check if those files have come in. So there the picture files are right here. And I have my Lambda policy file and some user details and a Lambda function. And I also have my HTML files right over here. So all the contents of our local directory have been copied to our S3 bucket. Okay, so after we have synced our local folder to our S3 bucket, I mean, that basically just did a complete sync. Now, what happens if we have removed some content? Let's say I deleted a couple of files from my local folder, and I just want to ensure that my local folder is in sync with my S3 bucket. I do not remember what files I had deleted. But the moment I perform this sync, what is going to happen is that whatever files that I'm going to delete on my local folder will be deleted in my S3 bucket as well. So let's go ahead and delete a couple of files right here. Okay, so let's say I am going to go ahead and delete a bunch of these, picture files from my local buckets. I'm just going to go ahead and cut them and probably go ahead and paste them somewhere outside. Okay, so now as you see, my pictures folder just has one file. So I've deleted rest of the other pictures. Now this deletion has happened. I deleted them sometime back and I do not know what was deleted, but I want to ensure that my bucket is in sync with my local folder. So the command for syncing is the same, but we are going to, as you see, append hyphen hyphen delete at the end. So let's go ahead and copy this. And this should delete the files from our S3 bucket. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this and then copy it right here. Okay, so as you see, the command is the same, but we have hyphen hyphen delete at the end and hit enter. And as you see, it deleted the picture files from our S3 bucket. So essentially, whatever content was present in our local folder, okay, along with any deletions, if at all, those deletions were reflected back on our S3 bucket. So let's go ahead and check that. Okay, so I'm going to click on Pix, hit refresh. And as you see, rest of the picture files have been deleted and we only have a single picture file right here. Okay, so the next command after we have synced our local folder with our S3 bucket with deletion, the next thing that we will do is we will sync our S3 bucket with our local folder. Okay, so this sync is bidirectional. That is, you can sync your local folder with your S3 bucket, or let's say you went ahead and uploaded some files in your S3 bucket, but you do not have them on your local folder. Then in that case, you can actually sync your S3 bucket with your local folder. Okay, so let me go ahead and basically, again, upload these files that I had copied outside right here. So I'm going to copy this path and paste it right here. And I'm going to go ahead and upload these files again and just hit upload. And as you see, these files should be uploaded now. Now remember, my local folder, my static website pictures local folder does not have these files. But moment we sync this, those files should be copied back again from our S3 bucket to our local folder. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to clear my screen first and then copy this. So this is going to sync our S3 bucket, and that is this dot right here is my current local folder, which is static website. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit enter. So as you see, it basically gives a message that it had performed the sync, and not only that, it actually went ahead and downloaded all these pictures. So if I go back to my local folder, and as you see under static website pictures, I have my picture files back here again. Okay. So similar to that, I mean, if we have deleted something, let's say in our S3 bucket, and we want to ensure that that deletion is reflected back on our local folder as well, that is as well possible. Okay, so let's say I come over here and I delete a bunch of files. Let me go ahead and select and uncheck the first one, and let's say I'm going to go ahead and delete these files. Okay, so I've deleted these files from here. Now these files are still present in my local folder because we had performed a sync right here. Okay, but they have been deleted from my S3 bucket. Now I want to ensure that I reflect deletions as well when I'm performing the sync. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the very same command, but along with delete. So let's go back to our command line interface. I'm going to clear this screen. And I'm going to copy this right here. And as you see, this is going to sync our S3 bucket with our current local folder along with deletions reflected. So this should actually go ahead and delete all the picture files in our pics folder. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And as you see, it basically deleted all the picture files. And if I go back, I will only see one single file right here. Okay, so after we have performed synced between our local folder and S3, and again between S3 and our local folder, let's say if we want to perform a sync again between our local folder and S3, but we want to exclude a couple of files, I would say, hey, I don't want to sync my CSS files. I just want to sync rest of the other files other than my CSS files. Okay, so I want to exclude everything else. So let me quickly go to our bucket, and what I'm going to do is temporarily I'm going to go ahead and just delete everything so that we can exclude something out. So as you see, our bucket is empty now. And now I'm going to go ahead and perform a sync all over again, but this time excluding this .css files. That essentially means that our CSS files present in the style folder will not be uploaded. Okay, so let's go ahead and paste a command right here. So we are going to sync our local folder with our S3 bucket, and we are going to exclude all the CSS files. So let's go ahead and hit enter. So as you see, it is uploading all the files right there. And if I go back over here and hit refresh, but you see it did not upload or sync the style folder. So the style folder is still right there, and the CSS files are still here, but they were not uploaded, or my S3 bucket did not sync those files because we had excluded anything that ends with .css. Now, just like how we can exclude a particular set of files, we can also include a particular set of files. So let's say if I want to include all the CSS files when I'm performing the sync. Okay, so instead of exclude at the end, we will have include at the end. So let's go back. I'm going to clear my screen, and I'm going to copy the very same command, but this time including the CSS files, and hit enter. And this should upload the CSS files to our S3 bucket. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And as you see, our CSS files got uploaded. So if we come back here and we refresh this, you will see a style folder along with our CSS files right here. So you could actually go ahead and include or exclude whatever type of files. I mean, I'm just giving CSS as an example, but it could be pretty much anything. Now, again, I mean, I just want to show this command to you. So you could potentially have include and exclude in the same command. Okay, like for example, over here, I want to include all the .html files and exclude all the CSS files. Okay, whenever I'm performing sync between my local folder and my S3 bucket. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my S3 bucket right here. Go ahead and delete everything. Okay, and again we will perform a sync, this time including HTML files. So this will include all the files along with HTML files, but still exclude the .css files. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen and then copy this command and hit enter. So as you see, it is uploading everything. It has uploaded HTML, but no CSS files were uploaded. So if we go back to our bucket right here, you will see that again, HTML was obviously included because we had requested HTML to be included, but CSS was excluded. Okay. So after we have synced our local folder, and I also showcased to you how we can include or exclude a specific set of files, the next thing that we are going to do is basically physically move files from our local directory to our S3 bucket and from our S3 bucket to our local directory. So basically this particular command right here, this will move my S3 bucket's content to my local directory. So whatever is present in my S3 bucket will actually physically move, and my bucket will be empty to a local directory of my choice. Okay, so I'm going to copy this command, and if we want to ensure that the subdirectories are also included, we need to ensure that we have the recursive dash recursive appended at the end. Okay, so let's copy this. I'm going to come back to my command line interface, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a temporary directory right here. I'm going to say my S3 temp and cd. So this is my temporary directory, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all my S3 contents to this specific directory. Remember, it's going to move, so that means my S3 bucket is going to be empty. So let's go ahead and copy this command. Okay, so this MV over here stands for move. It's going to move from my S3 directory to my current local directory, which is my S3 temp. So let's go ahead and hit enter. Okay, so that took a little while, but as you see, it has moved everything over here. So first, let's go ahead and refresh our bucket. So as you see, our bucket is empty. And then now, coming back right here, we had created my S3 temp. And if you see, all the contents of my S3 bucket have physically moved to my local folder. So after we have moved content from our S3 bucket to a local folder, the reverse is also true. That is, we can move contents, not copy or sync, but move contents from our local directory to our S3 bucket recursively. Okay, so this is the file, this is the command for that. As you see, is AWS S3MV, which stands for move. Dot is my current local directory, and then the S3 bucket. So let's go ahead and copy this command. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy back the contents of my S3 bucket from my temp directory back to S3. Okay. So let's go ahead and copy this. So this is going to copy contents of my local temp directory right here, which is my current folder, to my S3 bucket in a recursive manner. So as you see, our files have been copied. Okay, and again, we have all our S3 content back in here. If we go back, you will see that the folders are still there, but these folders are empty. Okay, great. Okay, so let's move on to the next command. Okay, so the next command that we have is, okay, so after we have executed most these commands, okay, the most important thing is to ensure that we release our resources. So in case we want to delete our bucket, then the command for that is RB, which stands for remove bucket. Okay, so it's AWS S3 RB and the bucket name. Now, this particular command will only work if my bucket is empty, which is not the case right now. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen and then paste this right here. Did I copy it? There it is. Copied and pasted this. So as you see, it's telling me that it cannot delete this bucket because it's not empty. Now, in order to delete a bucket which has objects in it, you have to append hyphen hyphen force at the end. So it's the same command, but with dash dash force at the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit enter, and this should basically go ahead and delete our bucket. Okay, so as you see, it's deleted all the contents as well as removed our bucket right there. So if we go back and click on Amazon S3, refresh, and as you see, our bucket along with all the contents of the bucket have been removed. Okay guys, so that's it from me for today. Please do let me know if you would like me to create videos on any other topic, and I can certainly have those created. Please post your comment. If you like my video, please click on like, and if you would like to hear or listen to any other videos on the similar lines, I have several videos on my channel. Please subscribe to my channel, and you will be the first one to know the moment I post a video. So thank you and have a nice day. Bye-bye.